And seal is true.
Ready?
Surgery.
When is it? Oh, it's coming up. Forget my earrings again.
Oh.
I'm fine. I did.
Did you?
I sent him to Patty and I
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
He wants to be early.
Yeah, what she said.
I'm sorry?
So it looked like she said.
No, I don't either.
Township just asked me, every now and then they'll bring me on. If you don't want to.
Good, everything? Good.
It used to be
Yeah, something like that. Supposedly try to switch it on.
as soon as she provides the township. I thought it was something that is not my recommendation.
Remember we talked about switching?
What's the buffer?
They're gonna put trees all along the property on the other side of it.
About the trees. I think we're big enough to actually screen something.
They're pretty big trees at the playground there.
They're a mix of deciduous and. Sorry.
Oh, pretty good.
They're actually, they're actually on the property to the south of that.
But you know what the deal is. So actually,
Yep.
nothing.
Okay.
You ready, Marianne?
Yeah. There we go. We're going.
Is everybody else ready? Call this meeting to order. Please call roll.
Mr. Quigley.
Here.
Mr. Ranto.
Here. Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Start off with agenda changes. Trustee Duranto, do you have any changes?
No.
Trustee Knapp,
No.
was there going to be a modification to the pricing on this one?
Beth, were we changing the price on one of these?
Waldo Building?
Yeah.
You know, I
The
forgot.
building and the,
Should be 216573.
Yes, 2479.
2479.
Is what it says on there now, but
It's
is it?
been corrected.
Okay.
That's on the purchase order was corrected and we sent out, but I wasn't sure if it had made it on the maintenance report. And then the addition of the Miracle contract for playground
Are
equipment.
we gonna leave that under old business, or
We can do that under old business then.
Where do you
For
want
the
it?
playground discussion. We might as well keep it with the playground discussion.
So there should be continuation of playground discussion and possible action.
Yes.
The changes I have is under 6, executive session. Should read for the purpose of discussion of purchase of property for public purposes. And I believe that's all.
Chair, how about the bike trail easement? That was added.
Bike trail easements.
Yeah. It was under zoning, and then you moved it to park report.
Oh,
That's the very last item.
so 5I, trail easement.
I actually left that at home. I thought it was gonna be in the next agenda, but I'm sure it's in here.
It should be.
Are we adding that item? Is that being added or maybe adding?
Is it in here, Marianne? It's in there.
It is in there.
It's highlighted. It should be highlighted. Yeah.
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking I was going to be for this.
Do we need to wait for that then?
No, it's as long as I have the resolution and that.
Okay. So we'll just go ahead and move on. The agenda is approved as modified. I will go ahead and open up for public comments regarding items not otherwise on the agenda. If there's anybody in the public that'd like to come forward, present any items that are not currently on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to zoning report. As always, we do have the hearing meetings located at the table up there. As I said the last couple of meetings, we are very busy, which is good, so feel free to go review those. Next item B is discussion on 6229 First Street. We've had some complaints about the property over there not being kept. Mr. Fairhay is the one that's been mostly engaged with them, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Pass these out. I know Mr. McCarthy and Rob and Gail are the only ones who've really seen this. But it's a series of letters and photographs that we've taken of the property. These actually date back to 2008. The problem reoccurred earlier this year. And at any rate, I've recently, since I believe May, have sent 3 letters. Mr. McCarthy followed up with a letter of his. The owner returned or made a call to Mr. McCarthy, left a message, I think maybe twice. And Mr. McCarthy sent a message, or gave her a phone message back, telling her to call me. She's never done it.
They left the phone message, I did not speak.
Okay. It sort of brings us to a point, you know, where push comes to shove here. It's my understanding we have 3 options. One would be to take her to common police court, get an injunction, or we could declare the property a nuisance and hire a crew to go clean it up and put it on her property.
There's a little more to it than that.
I'm just trying to be real.
No, I understand, just for the sake.
That has a lot of notification procedures that you have to follow. I know that you probably don't want to perhaps do anything tonight because Lisa and Ms. Toronto have not seen anything yet. The other option would be to file criminal charges in municipal court for misdemeanor charges. It's been pretty frustrating that we haven't gotten any response at all. The neighbors are not very happy about it. Some things that you'll see in the photographs, I believe that, you know, we can do something about. There's probably some that we cannot. There are 2 unlicensed vehicles on the property that have basically remained stationary for at least the last 2 months. They've been sitting in the same position. I guess I just ask that you review the materials that we passed out this evening, and if you have any questions or want to discuss it, you can stop by or give me a call and we can discuss what options we do have and, you know, what we're going to pursue or not pursue, and, you know, go at it from that point.
Is she older?
I've never met her.
Has there been any direct contact with her, or the property owner? Anyone, you've actually spoken with her, or?
No.
Outside of Lisa, there were 2 messages left while I was on vacation, and
For you? Or
at my office
by the property owner?
by Ms. Jenner. And I'll be happy to review those with you,
Okay.
maybe outside of this here.
And Tom, what is the misdemeanor? What would the misdemeanor possible?
It'd be a zoning violation.
Okay. But it would be multiple misdemeanors? Or is it just,
I'm not really
It
sure.
would be a matter of proof. You'd probably have to talk to the municipal prosecutor and see what their practices are up there.
I know a former municipal prosecutor declined to do things like this. So.
it's been going on for how many years, did you say?
I had written letters
Since 2008.
March and April, I believe, of 2008, and Mr. Gladman was the one who decided that she had done enough to clean up the property back then. This year, the complaints have resumed, mostly from one person, but he sort of seems to be the neighborhood representative of several other neighbors.
And someone is probably living in the home, to your knowledge, right? You've seen,
I can't say that I've seen her, but there are vehicles that come and go from the property. There's
do we have any prohibitions against tall grass? Or just not?
all
just
properties are supposed to be kept mowed. You know,
to a certain height? Is there a certain height? Or is
it
just
doesn't
noxious weeds?
specifically say an exact height, but the zoning code's pretty general. It said that, you know, properties must be mowed. That's all it says.
Just mowed? Okay. Yeah, I'd like some more time to take a look at it, obviously.
Are there any questions from Mr. Fairhead or Mr. McCarthy this time from the possibilities? If not, I do recommend the other trustees to contact either one of them to find out more. We just wanted to bring it to your attention that we've had some complaints regarding this property and show you some photos on it. Mr. Fairhead, do you have anything else from zoning?
There is an administrative review of American Tire Warehouse that's going in on the, or planned to go in on the southwest corner of Orange Point Drive and Graphics Way. It's back on the conference table in my office for you guys to take a look at. I know there was a question, and we had asked them if possible they could have the building, the dock area of the building face Graphics Way versus Route 23. Because of drainage issues, they were unable to do that. However, they seem to have come up with a pretty good landscaping plan that's actually on the property to the south of them, because they decided to put it on the back, or on the US 23 side of the detention ponds and everything. So there will be a buffer of, you know, the detention area and then the trees. There also should be a building sometime in the future in front of this. This might make it a better appearance from Graphics Way versus, you know, once the building is in front. I know we try to keep garage doors from facing Route 23, but in this case, I think since there's probably going to be a building in front of it one of these days, that is not going to matter in the long run, but that's the way I feel about it. Then talking about the zoning report, we have a hearing with MI Homes on September 11th and one with Triple T Transport on the 18th, and hopefully those will be the final meetings with those two. But wait and see how their next submittals come out or how they turn out. We're well on the way, and I think we should probably get a recommendation on both of those to the trustees at their next hearing.
Great, good to hear. Thank you. Moving on to the maintenance report, Trustee Toronto.
Monsieur?
First item on the agenda, or the only item under maintenance report, is the purchase of a new storage building for the cemetery. The existing storage building is deteriorating rapidly. We found it most cost effective both from a labor standpoint as well as material standpoint. We've got a pretty good deal on a prefab building that they will bring to the site, deliver it, and install in place. So.
The only question I had was the metal roof.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be concerned about rusting or?
The existing roof is metal. It actually has a higher rating than a regular asphalt shingle roof, which underneath the tree canopies would just provide a lot of mold and probably leak sooner than the metal roof.
What kind of, is it galvanized steel?
I think it's a powder coating.
I don't have any questions.
I make the motion to authorize a purchase order to AA Waldo Building Sales Incorporated in the amount of $2,479 for cemetery storage building replacement.
Second?
Mr. Toronto?
Yes.
Ms. Matt?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
So when they come to build that, we can put our orders in for the bologna sandwiches from Waldo? They're famous, I know, for their bologna sandwiches.
Sorry, not from this area. Where's Waldo? Sorry, I couldn't pass that up. Moving on.
Park report.
First item on the agenda, both spot labor positions have resigned. The resignations have been accepted. We've received a resume from someone who's retired from the city of Columbus. He's looking for some part-time work. I think he's a really good fit. He's actually skilled in snow plowing, so he'll be kind of perfect for the park, and any maintenance work that we've shared between the two. Any questions?
So he retired from his prior position, right? So he's available for flexible hours.
Yes,
And is this the only resume that we received?
that's it.
I don't have any questions.
The only thing I'd like to mention is that I never did receive the spot labor listserv notice somehow. So I'd like to see if we could send that out one more time and see if we get more responses. I never got it, and it could be the error that the listserv or the website's been having lately.
I actually got it for both email addresses, but didn't you sign up for your Gmail just recently?
Nope, been signed up with that for since the very beginning, 3 years. Maybe, yeah.
Okay. It is still, we have a second position that's not being filled,
Right.
and it's on the website. We'll go ahead and send
For
out
that,
another.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm good with that. And we have someone that actually worked for a government entity and has all that experience with trucks, mowers. I'm totally good with it.
I'm good with it too.
Okay. I move the adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved that Patrick Fickle is appointed to part-time, non-exempt, non-bargaining unit position of park worker, spot labor, effective September 5th, 2012. Be it further resolved that the compensation for this position shall be at the rate of $11 per hour, with paychecks to be issued based on a 14-day pay period. Be it further resolved that the compensation for this position shall also include the employee benefits for part-time, non-bargaining unit personnel stated in the Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual. Be it further resolved that appointment to this position is contingent upon the appointee satisfactorily completing a medical, physical examination, drug screening, and background investigation.
Second.
Ms. Franco?
Yes.
Quigley?
Yes.
Yes.
And if I may note, all of those requirements have been met. He's passed all of the screening. Next item on the agenda is bond park assistant and issue BP gas card. We're requesting that Brian Reinhardt be bonded and receive a gas card. It's just difficult with everything that goes on in the park department to have only the limited people with a gas card.
I don't have any questions.
I don't know.
What would the spending limit on a card be?
What was the question?
The spending limit, I'm not sure what
Generally,
they,
we,
I'm not sure what they are on the BP card.
$5,000. Generally, we put it at $5,000.
For the BP card? Is that for every, is that like a group? Because I know that the one account has several different cards.
Right, for the group, but, I mean, it's up to the board to, set the limit at whatever they choose.
I don't know what would he be using that for, just for gas?
And they put gas in the park vehicles as well as any maintenance vehicles that they borrow, and they fill up with 5-gallon tanks or cans for the gators. So,
Yeah, I feel comfortable with a little bit less, like $500 or $1,000 given on
Was
the.
it $5,000 for the whole
For the
maintenance
group.
department?
Right.
So his card is just one of several that go to that 5,000.
Right.
so he would just be part of the pool then, and maybe
Yes.
that's why Ms. Martin didn't specifically apply. I know when we do visas and Home Depots, there's more of a limit, but if this goes into the pool, it may just be added into that.
How many people share that account?
All of the fire guys that have accounts,
Everybody
myself,
shares
Mr.
that.
Ray, Parks and Maintenance Department,
Okay, I'm fine with that. then.
as well as zoning.
I make the motion to authorize the fiscal office to obtain a bond and BP oil credit cards for park assistant Brian Reinhardt.
Second?
Franco?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is to authorize the execution of task order and agreement for EP Ferris, task number 5.
Any questions?
I'm good.
I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to EP Ferris and Associates Incorporated Consultant in the amount of $4,200 for on-call consulting services, surveyor, engineer in regard to task number 5, issued under the agreement between the board and consultant dated the 20th day of June 2011, and to authorize Debbie Taranto to execute the related task order and agreement for such services, which shall be in the form presented to the board and dated August 22nd of 2012.
Second.
Ms. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Next item is to authorize execution of task order and agreement EP Ferris. This would be for task 6. Any questions?
I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to EP Ferris and Associates Incorporated Consultant in the amount of $29,525 for on-call consulting services, surveyor, engineer in regard to task number 6, issued under the agreement between the board and consultant dated the 20th day of June 2011, And authorize Debbie Taranto to execute the related task order and agreement for such services, which shall be in the form presented to the board and dated August 29th of 2012.
Second.
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Next item is Metro Parks final pay request. This is for the High Banks Connector Trail.
Any questions?
No.
I'll make the motion, yes.
No, I don't.
I make the motion to authorize release of final payment request to Metro Parks in the amount of $11,285 for the High Banks Connector Trail project.
Second?
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Next item is to authorize 50% deposit to Telescope Casual for pool furniture on order. The purchase order was written. They requested a 50% deposit. Ms. Martin has requested that we do authorization by the board to issue that first deposit check prior to the ordering of the furniture. It would come out of the existing purchase order.
I make the motion to authorize sending a 50% deposit, $4,116.25 to Telescope Casual Furniture Incorporated for the furniture order for North Orange Aquatic Center.
Second?
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Next item are purchase orders. First purchase orders to EP Ferris for Task 5.
I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to EP Ferris in the amount of $4,200 for Task 5.
Second?
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Next purchase orders to EP Ferris for Task 6.
I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to EP Ferris in the amount of $29,525 for Task 6.
Second.
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is a then and now. This is a then and now to Metro Parks for the Owen Field pedestrian crossing. This is the pedestrian crossing on the north side of Powell Road that connects to the pedestrian light.
I make the motion to
I
authorize.
just have a question.
Sure.
Has that been completed?
Yes.
It's up and running? Okay.
I make a motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Metro Parks in the amount of $1,250 for Owen Field pedestrian crossing.
Second?
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Last item added is the trail easement. I'm going to ask Mr. McCarthy to give a little explanation. This was kind of done before I got here. It's a trail easement that was negotiated with the development at the corner of Orange Road and 23. And it's just the execution of that easement as opposed to doing it in a plat is done as an easement document.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay?
Wow.
I knew the gist of it. I thought maybe, it's Mr. McCarthy. I thought he might have something to add.
Not many people leave him speechless.
Any questions?
No.
I move the adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio hereby accepts the easement tendered to the board by 7991 Columbus Pike LLC, an Ohio limited liability company for the donation of a utilities and public recreational bike path pedestrian trail easement over its property along East Orange Road in Columbus Pike, US 23, executed by Stephen D. Martin, its secretary, and approved by the Delaware Common Pleas Court, as evidenced by the petition and entry filed on August 20th, 2012 and August 21st, 2012 respectively, and recorded in the Court's Administrative Journal number 115. Be it further resolved that the Township Attorney is hereby directed to file such easement in the office of the Delaware County Recorder.
Second?
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Is that all? We'll move on to item 6, executive session. Can we go ahead and make a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of purchase of property for public purpose to include the board, Ms. Mesmer, Mr. McCarthy, Ms. Hugh? Anyone else? Have a second?
Second?
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mary Ann, you ready?
Yep, we're ready.
Motion to return to regular session?
Second?
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Franco?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, was that, did you second?
No.
It was Nat.
Yes.
Ms. Franco?
Yes.
We will move on to public safety report. Turn it over to Trustee Knapp.
Assistant Chief Noble?
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead and go through it,
Okay.
please.
First up on the agenda for us, accept resignation of Sean Smith, one of our part-time firefighter paramedics. Sean was hired with the City of Columbus Division of Fire, continued to work with us part-time for a while, but the demands of that job and the demands of a family, unfortunately, has brought us to this point, and he is elected to resign.
Is he full-time in his other position?
Yes, full-time with the City of Columbus.
Will we be replacing that position?
Yes, eventually. This will take us down to 12 part-time, and we have 4 that are currently, that have passed their background checks, so we're going to move them on to the next phase of the process.
Because we have how many part-time openings will we have?
17. Well,
At that
we,
time, 3 or?
5 positions available.
After this?
Yes, we
Okay.
have 17 total part-time positions, and we're down to 12.
Okay. Do you guys have questions? Okay, let's see. Is it effective, what was the effective date? Is it
I believe it's to
September
be, yes, effective September 1st, 2012.
I make a motion to accept the resignation, to regretfully accept the resignation of part-time firefighter paramedic Sean Smith, effective September 1st, 2012. Second?
Ms. Nat?
Yes?
Ms. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
The second item, unfortunately, we were made aware that the resolution that you passed at the last meeting, Resolution 12-337, needs to be rescinded, as we need to do a supplemental this evening, and then come back and redo that purchase order.
Do you have any questions?
No.
I make a motion to rescind Resolution 12-337 due to not enough money being appropriated in account 2191-220-323-1301. Second?
Ms. Nat?
Yes?
Ms. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
The next item is now the supplemental. Basically, we're moving $52,000 from a capital line item, vehicle replacement account, moving it over to apparatus repair. And you'll see that some of that money is to cover some purchase orders, the then and now purchase orders down below. And then some of that money will actually be recouped from our insurance carrier. So we'll discuss that more when we get to those then and now if need be.
Any questions?
No.
Make a motion to authorize a supplemental appropriation from account number 2191-760-750-0000 to account number 2191-220-323-1301 in the amount of $52,000 for vehicle repairs.
Second?
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Ms. Toronto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Next on the agenda are two purchase orders. One purchase order to this week, Community Media, for $1,500.76 for advertising for the fire prevention open house that's coming up October 6th.
Is that from 1 to 4 that day?
It's from noon to 4, I believe,
Noon.
on October 6th.
And that's a Sunday,
It is a Saturday this year.
this Saturday? Probably make sure that we make the press aware of that, or just,
Yes, we have, this is part of that, is putting the advertising in. We also have it on the website. Would be two of the main ways that we're advertising. There'll also be notices sent out in the schools home with all of the kids to their parents as well. So we're covering multiple advertising means.
do you guys have any questions?
No.
Okay, I make a motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to This Week Community Media in the amount of $1,500.76 for advertising for a prevention open house.
Second?
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Toronto?
Yes.
The next purchase order is to On Duty Equipment Company. We are replacing some outdated ballistics vests. Yes, we do carry ballistics vests on our frontline apparatus for various incidences that require the protection of our personnel. They are at the end of their warranty, so we need to get those replaced.
How long is the warranty on those?
5 years.
5.
And that is a manufacturer's warranty. After 5 years, they will not guarantee the vest.
And how many vests?
We are replacing 5.
Do you guys have any questions?
No.
Make a motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to On Duty Equipment Company in the amount of $4,500 for ballistic vests.
Second?
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Ms. Toronto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
I believe next on the agenda is our then and now purchase order. The very first one, fire apparatus service and repair. This is the one that was approved at the last meeting that you just rescinded. We need to reapprove that.
Do you guys have any questions?
No.
Make a motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Fire Apparatus Service and Repair, Inc. in the amount of $5,312.60 for multiple repairs to M362.
Second?
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Toronto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
The next purchase order is to Sutton Corp. in the amount of $46,264.32. This is, stems from an earlier incident in April this year regarding our engine and ladder that was involved in a collision. This incident was investigated. The individual driving was disciplined. I'm pretty sure that everybody was emailed back in April on this and was updated. And it was an oversight on our part, and I apologize to the fiscal officer. He was left off on the original email, and we apologize for that. But most everybody was emailed regarding this incident. We're going to go ahead and pay for the repairs now. The insurance is covering everything but our deductible, which is $500. So we should be receiving a check back from the insurance company, which will then be deposited back into the fire fund to replenish this. And again, our apologies.
That's okay, thanks.
And our insurance rates are not expected to go up as a result.
We asked, and the insurance company indicated that there's a lot of variables that are involved in determining whether or not our rates will increase. They really could not give us a good, not a good answer, but a solid answer at this time.
Do you have any questions? I make a motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Sutphen Corporation in the amount of $46,264.32 for replacement bucket and yoke on L361 and repairs to E361.
Second.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Ms. Randall?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
And the final then and now is to Phoenix Safety Outfitters, $4,046.55 for 2011 invoices from this company. So it was for purchases of turnout gear made towards the tail end of 2011, and we were made aware that we still had open balances with them. I can only tell you that we're in the same situation with this vendor that we're finding with other vendors as well, and that, you know, we continue to ask for invoices before the books close at the end of the year, and we find out, you know, towards the tail end of the next year, oh, by the way, we still have some open invoices. We've asked multiple times to the vendors, get us the invoices before the end of the year, and we still have some lingering invoices. So again, it's from 2011. So we're finishing up that from last year.
I would like to, may I make a point, Mr. Chair? And I just want to say thank you for putting the pressure on them and Ms. Hugh as well in some instances, because what that does in terms of audit practices is that it makes the appropriations in the subsequent year look like they exceed estimates.
Yes.
So when those companies do that and those POs are left open, it creates an issue for the township.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
No?
I make a motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Phoenix Safety Outfitters in the amount of $4,046.55 for 2001 invoices for turnout gear. Did I say 2001? 2011 invoices for turnout gear.
Second.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Ms. Randall?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
That will conclude our report for now. We'll stick around for old business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to old business. Item 8A, continuation of playground discussion and possible action.
With our efforts with Miracle, kind of an ongoing back and forth. But I think that we've made it to a point, the 3 tot seats have been ordered. I'm hoping they're in next week. Towards the end of next week would be a good delivery date. And then going back and forth, we've worked out the contract with them. I think that we want to enter into a contract and not just sign their quote for a number of reasons. One is a lot of the warranty work. We want to make sure that they're installing everything that they say they're installing for the quote price that they're providing us. And there's a lot of, this isn't just hanging swings and tire swings and those kind of things. The excavators have foundations that get replaced, and the tornado swing that they're addressing with the cyclone spinner will remove playground surface area to put in that footer. So there's some serious playground interruption that'll happen, and I want to make sure that they're obligated to replace and repair our surface to the level that it is now and the requirements of the fall zones and everything. This is a very similar contract with all the specifications and the surfacing that we've done for Glen Oak. Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Overturf have worked very hard on these specs over the years, and we've gotten them to a point where we're very comfortable with them. And so this would hold Miracle to the same specifications and requirements. The revised quote finally came in this afternoon. There's still an error in it for the equipment subtotal. It is $5,232. That's what the math adds up to. I will have that revised by Miracle, but the total project cost with installation does not change. That error in math did not carry through. It's $12,332 for the installation of all the items that they're going to replace under warranty and the installation of all the additional pieces that we're purchasing. I said before, I think that I still think that there's a customer service issue with Miracle in that we're not getting response and service that I would like to see, but I do think that their proposal for replacement under warranty is acceptable. I think it's a very fair offer. They've stepped up and are replacing things that have been out of warranty, but we've been requesting to be replaced for over 4 years now. So hopefully we can get everything replaced and have a relationship with the new company, Miracle Midwest, who's taken over for Anderson Recreation. So, which will be a win-win for both the township, that would be able to move forward with our existing playground equipment and be serviced and get parts and repair pieces, and as well for Miracle to sell additional parts and pieces and have a good reputation in the area again.
And you said they are the ones that are going to install the tot swing?
No, when we get the tot swings, we'll put them up. They just come with a clevis. We've done that before. That's not a big deal, but the other parts and pieces, they will deliver, unload, install, be responsible for the site, etc.
Thanks for working so hard on it.
You said that you checked this math, that the total cost is...
The equipment cost subtotal is wrong. We went back and forth a couple of different times today with this revised quote, and there were some errors in it several times. When this last quote, the information is correct with the dollar amount and the parts and pieces that we're getting, but the math total hadn't changed from an earlier error.
I would just remind the board, I think we talked about this at the last meeting or meeting, I honestly don't remember at this point, but essentially what we did do was take the contract form that Scott and I have worked toward for a while and modified it over for this type of a purpose. As far as the technical specifications, those were prepared by Mr. Overturf working with Ms. Hugh. It's hopefully a good balance. It was a quick and much less expensive way of putting this thing together.
Any questions?
No, you have put up with a lot. I can't believe how difficult they've been to work with. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. So hopefully this will resolve everything at this point. It's too bad it couldn't have happened sooner.
There is still the outstanding questions of the ADA issues. Those have not been completely, analysis isn't complete, and so we're still looking at that. But they've started with the main apparatus, and I'm still pushing to get those answers as well. So.
Okay, are we ready to take action? Are you all okay with it?
Yep.
I move the adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio, enter into and execute an agreement with Miracle Recreation Equipment Company, doing business as Miracle Midwest for provision, delivery, installation, and repair of equipment associated with township playgrounds. The agreement shall be in the form presented to the board and bearing in its footer the identifying version date of 09/04/12A. Be it further resolved that Debbie Taranto of the board shall execute such agreement on behalf of the board.
Second.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
next item on the agenda is the continuation of the discussion of trees in the right-of-way. With the approval of the board, I think possibly the best way to move forward with this, since there are so many different questions and different directions that we can go in, the most efficient way might be to kind of answer some key questions so that if the direction is to move forward, Mr. McCarthy and I could then work toward the policy that would come back to the board. I think, and please discussion or questions, but I do think that the main question, and we could look at these by consensus to move forward, would be, what's the kind of the board's overall look at, do we want to move forward in removing trees in the right-of-way? And then beyond that are additional questions. If the answer is no, then that's kind of, it drops. If the answer is yes, I think we need to look at whether it's ash trees or all trees, dead branches or dead trees, main roads, all roads, how are they identified by complaint or by area? Are we going to do them this year or next year, or portion it off into both? But I think if we can kind of start to take some small bites out of that, we can maybe move forward with some decisions and some direction that can be written as policy.
Where did we leave off at that last time, where we were going to do an inventory or a map?
I have an inventory, and we've looked at this again. I've kind of distributed in the past my tree points, and then we've gone through, and the last time, we looked at some inventory with the trees and everything. Mr. James has gone through the areas. We have some addresses with the number of trees. I looked at it from dollar amount, because we have some areas that have, one tree that's 20 inches, and we have some areas where there's 15 trees that range in size from 6 inches to 30 inches. And so I took some averages, because I think that we're kind of talking about dollar amounts here instead of specific trees. And I looked at both ash trees in the wires with removal, and this, I think that this is probably an average estimate. These numbers could be higher once the tree service comes out and takes a look at it. I've taken kind of based upon the county estimates, like a 20-inch tree, which has the estimates give for an 18-inch or a 30-inch. Instead of $200 or $400, I use $300. So I've averaged a lot of things and made a few assumptions. But for ash trees in wires, I have a total of $19,200. For ash trees outside of the wires, but since these are on main roads, I would request that we have the contractors, we contract out for these because of traffic control issues. Those ash trees outside of the wires is $11,800. Then we have other trees that are within the wires is $600, and other trees outside of the wires are $900. The total is $32,500. Those are main roads only, such as Vale, East Orange, Big Walnut, Plum, and Shanahan.
And how many trees were there total?
I didn't do a specific count because in some instances there's, like I said, 15 trees, but some of them are 6-inch caliper. So,
like 50 or, I think you said 50.
Well, I've got about 110 to 120 trees.
I mean, and like I said before, I know the township has not been in favor of cutting these trees down in the right of way for years, but I think that other places are doing it, and I guess the city of Gahanna, I know we're not a city, but I guess apparently they are also will cut down trees in the right of way for safety issues. So
I guess you say the township's not in favor, but yet that's because of the Ohio Revised Code states it's not part of something that township is supposed to do, I thought.
Well, that's true, but it's also probably true. It's probably there's no municipality that's responsible for trees in the right of way until they fall. But sooner or later, but that regardless of that, Gahanna's doing it, the Delaware County engineers taking them down. They don't have to take them down until they fall down, but like I said last time, it's a big safety issue. And also, they're going to come down sooner or later, so we might as well just start cutting them down now. And when they get so dead that they're dangerous, they actually will cost more to take down because they become a hazard to take down.
Well, I just want to make sure we're clear on something. I mean, if they do fall, again, back to Ohio Revised Code, it only is if it falls in the road is our responsibility. So we got 110 trees. I'm just trying to clarify something here, and that yeah, they might fall, but not necessarily in the road, which not necessarily is the township responsibility. So I just want to make sure we're
Well, that's
clear on that.
possible.
So not all 110 are going to drop on the road. But to the point of these other municipalities moving forward, the majority of the reasons why they are is because of the epidemic with the ash borer
Right.
and the amount of treatment, what's going on there.
But
So
it's the
it's a
same thing
different,
here,
it's a
right?
different time than a couple of years ago, or several years ago, these discussions have come up because there's been such an epidemic with the ash borer
I think it came up last year, if I'm not mistaken.
over the, through these discussions. So, I mean, it's fine with each board reevaluating it based off of what's going on in the
Right,
environment.
I mean, there was a lot of opposition when I brought it up in March or April, whenever that was, so. But I don't mind, I like Deb's idea from last meeting about eliminating the ash trees. That's fine.
Well, the problem is though, is when I went out with Beth and Aaron and went over all the roads and the trees,
They're all different kinds.
there's a lot, major oak trees. And actually, they all look more dangerous than the actual ash trees.
Beth, did you include those in your tree survey? Okay, so maybe we have 50 dead ash trees or so. I thought that that's, maybe.
Well, there
half
was
of them.
more ash trees than anything else, but some of the major dead trees
big
were
ones, okay.
oak and,
Some of the larger ones are other species.
And they're gonna come down sooner or later. I mean, our roads are just so busy. It's not like we're living in a rural township where a tree can fall, maybe not hurt anybody. And that's, I mean, $32,000, I mean,
Well, I think also past discussions based it around that conversation too, was also being very conservative and cautious of the money being spent.
right. We
So-
can get, I know that somebody saw this in the paper and brought to my attention that the city of Gahanna, he worked for the city of Gahanna, and apparently they're getting better prices, but I'm not exactly sure how that's going. Maybe I could give that information to you. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know how they're getting any better prices than Tree Barber has given the county. I mean, they're dirt cheap, and actually, when I called him in and met with him, and he hesitantly agreed that that was his contract price for the county, that he would adhere to those, you could almost see the sorrow in his face of what he had agreed to, because these prices, I mean, they're cutting them down, they're removing them out of wires on the right of way, and they're taking the wood. So, I mean, that's not a cost-effective venture, and, you know, in some instances, they're doing it for $400.
Who is the contractor?
Tree Barber is the one that we've been talking to. We spoke to all three of the county contractors. Tree Barber had the lower rates for the majority of the trees that we have.
Yeah, because I think the quote a while back was more like $50,000 or something. Maybe that was,
That
this is a better quote.
$50,000 quote was before we
Right.
before we got in contact with the county estimates and actually took measurements and looked at it from an individual basis.
This is much better, this $32,000 quote.
And again, it could be more than that once we get them in. I mean, it's, you know, I would like to be reasonable and fair with the contractors, because they kind of bid some things blindly without having a chance to go out and look at it. These are general trees under general conditions within the roadway. So if we're, you know, really close to electric lines and really tangled in other trees and have a number of different issues, you know, with drainage and everything else, I'd like to be fair with them. So, you know, their quoted price, you know, I think needs to have some flexibility to it, because the county is also then, after using those prices, having them go out and quote specific areas. So, which is what I would propose that we do.
And you talked about, do you have an area, like a map of the trees?
I have the addresses to everything that we inventoried within that list.
Because we discussed last time, I think, making different zones possibly, right, and doing one zone.
My preference, if we're going to do this, is to do it by area and by roadway, not by complaint and jumping around, and with additional mobilizations and on, off kind of thing. To coordinate with the tree company is the most economical and efficient way to remove
So we
these.
could say we want all these trees taken down and give us a price, and it would probably be a better price. I think that's a good idea.
One thing that I had mentioned to Ms. Taranto is something that we're working on right now is we do our fall drive-throughs to send letters out to residents that have trees in the right-of-way that overhang the pavement, and we've been sending out letters saying, you know, please trim your trees 8 feet above sidewalks. It's in the newsletter, 14 feet above roadways. So far, we have sent out, between last week and this week, 174 letters. And so it's the responsibility of the homeowner that owns that live tree to maintain it so we can get the snowplows in.
Do they have to cut the limbs if it's a dead tree? You said live tree. They would be
Off of both, yeah. I mean, the limbs would be removed to 14 feet. So it doesn't specify live or dead, but what happens is they get stuck on the snowplow truck, and then those branches and things fall into the back of the truck and get stuck in the auger and stop the salt.
And if they don't cut the branches, what do we do?
We hesitantly go out and play makeshift arborist, and it's my high recommendation that they prune their own trees because they don't want my guys to do it.
But we would tell them before we did that, right?
We give them 30 days to do it. If it's in the right of way, we can clear the path for the snowplow
And is
trucks.
that in the letter? Does it say, do they
We
have
give them 30 days.
Okay, so they're aware that at 31 days, we might go in there and just prune it ourselves.
You know, I'm actually fine with it. I mean, you know, Ms. Nat brought it up, it's been brought before, and I'm the one that brought it up last year. Taking care of some trees over on one of the main roads, and there was that discussion went on. So I'm actually okay with looking at the possibility of the main roads, getting that taken care of.
So what would the next step be? Just, do you have a?
And that would be ash trees only?
I think,
Well, what's your recommendation from going out and reviewing it?
The most dangerous trees are not ash trees that I saw.
yeah, I think it would be cheaper now to just go ahead and do them all than trying to do a piecemeal later. Especially if the bigger ones are not ash trees.
Currently, right now, nothing's budgeted for this.
Correct.
Do you have to create a new line item for that?
It's my understanding, what Ms. Martin and I spoke, that would come out of capital account, general, and that we would do kind of a road repair and maintenance line item, which we don't have right now. We have a buildings for Township Hall, and we have 2 site improvements, but we don't have a highways repair and maintenance.
Right, or could just decide to pay it out of general. Save your budget. I know you don't like that.
Thanks.
What do you say, save what? What did you say? Oh.
Can any of it be done in-house?
Some of the smaller trees and not in the wires could be done in-house, but the majority are definitely in the wires.
What about license agreements and permission to remove the trees?
It's
What's gonna
my
have to go in
understanding, and actually in talking to Ms. Martin, she had given me some information
Aren't they
from
on
the
right of way?
township handbook that had asked some specific questions about entering. It's actually, the question is, if trees and shrubs growing within the right-of-way of a township road are in such condition that they interfere with traffic, would require would ORC 554314 require the trustees to obtain the consent of the abutting landowners to cut? And the answer is no. ORC 554314 does not require compensation to the abutting landowners for trimming or removing trees or shrubs that have grown on or encroached into a right-of-way of the township roads. Consent of the abutting landowner applies only to the care of trees and shrubs, the retention of which does not interfere with traffic. So if they interfere with the traffic, then we can go in and cut them without any compensation. They've encroached into the right-of-way, and we have the right to clear the right-of-way.
Yeah, we should make it clear that none of these are on personal, on any private property.
Oh, it's no different than the tree trimming though. I mean,
Those are also right of way owned by the township.
but you give them a courtesy to let them know what.
I think we
Right,
check,
yeah.
we're going to find that it makes a difference what type of road we're looking at. If it's in a subdivision, that's ours.
Yeah.
If it's in Orange Road, if it's on the Center Road, my recollection is that you have to work it out with the owner. And
If it's in the right of way?
Yeah. They own to the center of the road. You don't own, I don't own to the center of the road where I live. You don't own where you live.
But in subdivisions, we do just go in.
Subdivisions we do because that's.
Dedicated
ours.
right-of-way.
Right.
Yeah.
So logistics of this is a lot more complex to be able to.
How's the county doing it? Because they're taking trees down the right away. Do you have any idea?
They're just doing it. They're taking it as right-of-way, and they're
Yeah, that's
cutting
what I
it
thought
down
they were doing.
as their right-of-way.
And they're taking down how many, hundreds?
They had $150,000 budgeted for this year.
220 ash trees.
But if it creates a hazard to traffic, I think that's the trigger. That we don't have to get permission. Is that what you said? Mike, could that be it?
I didn't say
I
that. I'll be happy to check it and let you know.
I would check,
but,
because I think she said that we can go onto the property as long as we don't, as long as it's a
Well, she
hazard.
cited to the Ohio Township Handbook, and I would say that the majority of the information that I've seen in there over the years has been generally correct. I've also seen a few things that
Oh, yeah.
maybe had a little more shading than would be evident at first read.
Well, I would want your legal opinion on that.
Well, no, I'll just check it, and if it's clear, but I know I've read cases, it's been a number of years.
Well, in that case, from the Township Handbook, again, there was another question for duties relating to highways continued. If a tree is located on private property adjacent to a township road, do the township trustees have authority to remove the dead branches of a tree which overhangs the road, creating a dangerous situation? And the response to that is the property owner has the primary duty to remove dead branches on a township road if the tree is located on private property outside of the right-of-way of a township road. It would only be in an emergency situation that the Board of Township Trustees itself might enter upon the private property and remove such dangerous branches if it should appear imminent that the branches might fall. Even in such an emergency situation, the township trustees should be extremely hesitant to proceed to remove the branches. Although the township trustees have a secondary duty to eliminate this dangerous condition, the board should first institute nuisance abatement proceedings under ORC 376703 to compel the property owner to remove the danger.
So that's where the trunk itself is located on private property and the branches extend onto public property?
That's my understanding. Or I also read into that the possibility of a scenario where the property owner owns to the center line of the road. And it's a right-of-way easement over that, not dedicated right-of-way.
I mean, I guess we could also notify the property owners as a courtesy.
I don't know how many of them are going to argue over dead trees.
Yeah, I doubt it. Sometimes it's good to let people know so they're not surprised, and probably most of them would be happy about it, but sometimes when big equipment shows up near your house, it can be kind of frightening. it could make you worried. Do we just want to recess it, or what do we need to do? Table it to the next meeting?
Well, I don't know, what are you looking for at this point? You mentioned that you just wanted to see some guidelines.
Well, I think if we kind of answer some of those main questions, that we can come back with a proposal. If we're starting to look at different areas, you know, we can bring in tree barbers to take a look at some areas and give us some pricing so that we can compare that against our assumptions and estimates.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then have Mike check on the legal
I'll check that and
implications.
I'll get the answer to you folks in that as well.
Do you have any other thoughts on it?
Actually, if I recall, Beth, I think it was back in the 90s, we had some situations along the Orange Road type roads, and we did send a letter that said, look, you've got the primary liability here. We may have some involvement as well, but why don't you take care of it? And they did.
Since I've been here, we've sent letters to property owners on West Orange Road and said, you have a branch down that's hanging on the wires, you have a precarious tree, please take care of this immediately, and they have.
Have you looked at contacting the owners and seeing if they'll just remove the trees?
I mean, that's another possibility.
Sorry, that just floated.
That is a possibility. I mean,
Well, and for me, that kind of raises more questions, because
Yeah, it
those
does.
people that go
Yeah.
out and spend the
Yeah,
dollar
they'll get
amounts to
upset
do it,
later.
and we have a similar situation across the street. One house has eliminated all of their trees, some of which were in the right of way, and one house has not removed any. You know, what is the response when people remove those, and then those that do not follow through get theirs taken down for free by the township?
I think it would be disingenuous if we do decide to create a policy and then though it is a good idea
Let me
to check.
retract that thought.
Yes, it was a good
Let it
thought,
in.
it never hurts to ask, but I think it would be a good idea. I think it would be better just
I guess I
to,
was looking more on the mass
Go
scale,
ahead.
so-
and not penalize the ones that procrastinate. Or not, and
I think we're
reward the
penalizing the
ones.
ones that went
That's
ahead.
what I did, reward the ones who
I mean,
procrastinate.
that's always going to be a concern too, because we've had, like you mentioned, many residents that have taken it down because we've asked them to. And now we're going to go through and remove a bunch, so.
Well, we're creating a new policy, so it starts on the day we create it. And part of the reason is that, because it's become such an epidemic that some of those people just happened that their trees died earlier, and they were part of the original situation that caused us to create this policy.
So if we're going to use the epidemic as the reason for doing this, then we have to keep the ash trees only.
Right, well, it is because of the epidemic, but if while they're out there, we do have other dead trees. I think if you have 110 or whatever dead trees, and however many are going to fall in the right of way, we're not sure, but I still think it would be cheaper in the long run, because the other ones are going to fall in the right of way possibly sooner or later. They're going to fall.
Can we only cut the trees down that are gonna fall in the right of way? What about the trees that are gonna fall
I actually
the other
have a
way?
couple of trees that we're concerned about right now. One's on West Orange. It's fairly small, and it's going to fall. It's cracked at the base. It's just waiting to fall. And I've held off because I don't want to send a letter to the property owner saying this is your responsibility, and then at the next trustee meeting decide that we're going to remove these.
Is that one that you would have to have a contractor take care of?
It's located, it's tied up in the wires, so it probably is. It's a fairly small tree and it's an easy removal, but it would still be something that would be left up, that I would send a letter to the property owner and under usual circumstances and say, this is, you know, on your property, it's going to fall, it's a danger, please address it immediately. So, you know, a response one way or another is kind of important to us, because I don't want to go out and seem unfair that, you know, we've had this on the agenda and we've been talking about it, but they need to remove it, and then we come in and take the other ones next to it down because they're dead.
Do you think it could fall soon, like any day? And I don't know if we can make a decision tonight. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with going forward, but I think we need to check on the legal issue.
Like, we've had kind of this discussion before. Kind of, I think it basically revolved around sidewalks. But I think clearly with the bidding process through the county, we can get better pricing and, you know, coordination of tree removal. Is there any option to make the pricing available, do some type of a program that we kind of run and institute with payment from the property
The
owners?
board's looked at, I'd have to check that, but I know in the past, the board has looked at similar ideas, and in the end, didn't want to end up in the middle between the contractor and the property owner. That's my recollection. Certainly, if you have a crew out there, nothing stops a property owner who has other trees they want to take out from approaching them and asking them if they can work something out.
Right.
But, you know, I'm trying to remember, I'm not gonna right now, but I know that it was, I can't say for sure it was trees, it might have been sidewalks, I don't even know. But whatever it was, we were going to be doing something, and the idea was brought up, and at least at that point, they determined that, just from a practical standpoint, they didn't want to end up in a situation, well, you recommend to these folks they did a lousy job, you know, blah, 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 I'm not going to pay, and you know, what happens now?
Right.
Are you saying offering that price out too?
Well, I couldn't
owners
offer
in
the
or out.
price out, but I'm saying that, you know, for a lot of private property owners, it's a daunting task for people who haven't removed trees that may think, you know, oh, it'll cost thousands of dollars to remove that, and we could actually, from a bidding perspective from the county, get it for under $1,000 if it's a large tree. They may want the wood and may want that option. With this option, they would not have the ability to take that wood. Part of the deal, I think, is if we're removing them, the tree cutter, and I think that's part of his deal with removing these trees at that cost, is that he's going to take them back to his shop and sell it as firewood at some point. So,
Are you talking about private, offering that
the township not pay for it, but that we be able to offer that the township, you know, will do it as a group, you know, as a kind of a communal bidding process to say everybody that, you know, these trees are your obligation to remove. The township can get you a better price if we pull those, similar to the road improvement project that we do with all the counties.
For the right-of-way, trees in the right-of-way you're talking about?
I think it would have to be trees in the right of way. I don't think we want to get involved with anything on private property.
So you were just proposing that instead of us?
It was just kind of a question that might be some type of a compromise of one way versus another. I don't know. Mike, when we've talked about it in the past, it was really, like you said, something that we didn't want to get in the middle of some type of an argument that the work wasn't satisfactory, but it was kind of
I think some
under
of the
the...
issues that came up along Orange Road probably didn't help
Mhm.
in some of those easement areas.
Well, I think, you know, as you pointed out, there's still a couple of questions that we need answered.
I'll check the 5543 site and get back to you folks on that. As far as, now, you weren't suggesting we use the county bid for the benefit of these residents.
Yes, she was.
That
I think the county bid allows
the township to participate.
allows the
Just the
township to
township, right.
participate, but it didn't say property
When that was kind of my
owners or
question, if
residents.
the township ran a program
You'd have to
to
do it
do that.
yourself
Okay.
if you were going to go in
That's
that
a good-
direction.
a
And
good
first, we'd
thought.
have to even decide if that's something we can do. I'm not so sure off the top of my head it would be. But if that's the board's will, we can certainly find out.
That's a good suggestion. I think it's a good thing to think about. I'm still in favor of us doing it. I mean, if we're not ready to make a decision, then we should probably just table it, even though I'm worried about that one tree. Do you have any idea how much that one is to take down?
It's real small. I mean, when it falls, it's going to be tangled up in the wires for a couple of days.
So you don't think it's dangerous?
I mean, it's going to fall because it's cracked at the bottom.
What's the
But it's
caliber?
not very big. It's not 8-inch, 10-inch.
Has anyone talked to the utility company?
It's not touching the wire yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's in the lower wires. I mean, if this was touching an electric wire or close to it, AEP would probably come out and take it down. It's not. It's in the cable and telephone wires, and it's almost impossible to get them to turn anything away from this.
I would just table it to the next time, because I don't think we have enough information to make a decision.
Consensus to table it?
Yes.
And then the questions that we're going to answer for next time, Mike, you're going to do some research on that Ohio Revised Code.
Correct.
And you're gonna do a list by street, or you're gonna get price
I have a
quotes
list
by
by
street?
street.
Are you gonna get price quotes by street, by road?
We can look at that. I mean, I can show this list to Tree Barber. They're supposed to be coming to take the trees out of the woods back here sometime this week. So I can meet with him and show him this and see if we need to drive out and take a look at
Yeah,
it.
well, how many roads are on that list?
Orange Road, Bale, Big Walnut, Plum, and Shanahan. And, I'm sorry, and North Road and West Orange.
Could you email me a copy of that? Thanks. If you get the quotes, if you could send them out to us in the meantime.
Which quotes?
When you get the quotes from Tree Barber, after you cut them.
This is really intensive, I think, until we kind of have a policy of what we're removing and everything. I don't want to spray paint any trees, I don't want to mark anything.
You're just gonna get a general feel, is what you're saying?
I'd like to see if he kind of agrees with my estimates that,
Okay,
you know,
that's fine.
my assumptions.
That works.
Okay, moving on to item C, continue procedure discussion for website listserv notification. At our last meeting, sort of discussed prior to any listserv notifications going out being reviewed by the trustees. The last 2 weeks I noticed that, but I guess my only thought is that there's a lot of those that really don't need to be reviewed. I mean, they're standard formatted items that go out on a regular basis that I don't really perceive as being needed to be reviewed by the trustees. And, from that process, you know, for instance, meeting agendas, notices, things that we get from the county that all we're doing is turning around and replicating exactly what they say because we don't want to change their wording for any particular reason. So I think a lot of those notices, I guess in my view, I don't feel need to be emailed prior to the trustees for review. I just, from my standpoint, it's just an administrative procedure that needs to be done. And, for special things that we might have to go out, for instance, events or various things, I have no problem with them being reviewed. But I think there's a lot of these that are this procedure that I, in my mind, think can just be sent out for the most part. So I just want to pass that along, and if there's any objections, that's the way I would look at this from moving forward.
Yeah, I would prefer to still get copies of them. That way I can verify also that I actually received them. It's good. I can check for spelling errors or maybe a little tweak. It can't hurt to ever have 2 or 3 sets of eyes. And also that way, after I get it, I know it's going out and I can check. And if I don't receive it, I didn't know that spot labor email was going out. I never ended up getting it. And by the time I realized it had gone out, it was really too late to send it out again. So I prefer to keep getting them. I think they're very helpful.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I certainly had a busy day today with all the notices. Do those actually, they sent out too many today.
Yeah.
They all have to be sent today. Couldn't some of them have been sent last Friday or Thursday?
Yeah, I thought that that little rule I saw on there said no.
Well, we tried to. Unfortunately, we get some information last, and that goes back to maybe going back to what we did before, merging a couple at a time so there are not so many. Because there's some that probably could potentially be on the same notice. I don't think they necessarily have to be all separate.
Well, I think if they have to do with separate topics, though, that I find them reading them a lot more now. Each one has a separate topic, like Parks Board agenda, Development Board agenda. I think if someone was like, oh, Development Board, I don't even need to open that up, or Parks Board, or something that they're not as concerned about, but then they see railroad crossing, a road closing at railroad tracks, they might open that one, just depending on what people are looking for. I find it interesting when we send them out individually, but I prefer them not to go out so many in one day, but I thought that was some big deal that happened.
It is, and unfortunately, as I mentioned, we had a lot of things that were required to get out on a timely basis that we could have done, like as I mentioned, on a single notice, but because of a request to have them individually, that's what had to happen. We don't want to do that as often as much as, try to avoid that as much as possible, putting that many out in a day.
Have we had any complaints?
Haven't had any complaints previously, the way it was done, or now, from a standpoint of...
Right, you can't complain about something that you're not getting or that you didn't open. But I think we should take that part on the policy about no more than one being sent out per day if we're not going to adhere to it.
I don't know if
It
it's a
wasn't a
policy,
policy,
it's a
it
suggestion.
was a suggestion, a recommendation, asking you to make sure, asking all the trustees and everybody to say, listen, let's try to limit the amount that go out.
Right.
It's not going to break the
common sense.
system, it's not going to break the system, but it's going to happen occasionally from here to there.
It's common sense.
But again, I guess I don't foresee the need to make sure that every single notice going out is being reviewed. I mean, as Ms. Toronto pointed out, that there's, a massive amount of emails from that for review, and then it's being sent, and then it's being...
If you don't, the rule was that we discussed last time, if you see it and you don't review it and don't respond to her by a certain time, then it's gonna go out as specified, as it was sent out. So if you're not concerned, technically, I am the only one that asked for that, so she could just send it to me, but because we're a board, she's sending it to all three. Now, if they're annoying you, then you can just...
Not annoying me.
I don't want to limit her. She also needs to move on to the next
Exactly,
job.
she has things to do, so she's waiting for responses about things that are...
She's not waiting, she never waits. She says, I'll send this out within 30 minutes, an
But
hour.
that is waiting, it's waiting 30 minutes, and then if you do have a change, all I'm saying is that there's certain ones that don't need to be technically reviewed. They're administratively,
What in your
they're
opinion?
Procedures.
I disagree.
If there is, then make a suggestion for the next time that one goes out, because they're basically templated the same over and over again.
Like what, park board meeting
Agenda,
or
OTV
advisory
agenda.
board.
But sometimes there's like a misspelling in the title or something that could be tweaked a little bit. And I've only made changes, I believe, to 2 out of all those, so it's not like there's a lot of changes being made. But I would still like to review them because once again, then I can make sure they actually receive it when it goes out. And then if I don't get it, then we know there's a problem. I asked for that months ago, actually, and nobody did it.
I don't recall what you asked for months ago. We did it this time because that's what the request was. All I'm saying is that it just seems like we're over-managing this process for the administrator assistant to get these notices out, especially if they're, as I mentioned, whether they're turning around accounting information, that exact same information that's already being provided to us, administrative notices, things that we do on a consistent basis. I just don't see the need to have Ms. Bay go ahead and email us, wait for a possibility for a response, then email it out again. I'm just, to me, that's just slowing down the process.
But it's quality versus speed.
There's nothing about quality about the same templates. If there's a mistake, she's essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Mentor, but the majority of those are the same template over and over again.
But the title...
So if there's a change that's needed in there, I mean, it's something that a trustee can come and say, okay, how about next time we do it this way or along the lines.
Oh, yeah, I've done that, but how would I know if I didn't get the notice that how it was done? If I don't end up receiving it through my listserv, because there's that problem that's going on with the listserv. I wouldn't even know it went out, and that's what happened. And there are misspellings in the titles.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying not to micromanage the process, but
Well, it's
that's
important to
okay.
me, so, I mean, if you choose not to get them, that's up to you. I would prefer to get them, please.
Do you have any other questions or thoughts on that? Do you care less if you...
I haven't seen any issues, so it's not a concern of mine.
Okay.
Everybody has different concerns, and that's why there's 3 of us.
Well, all I was asking you is hopefully maybe there would be a compromise to say that certain administrative ones didn't have to go through that process just
But
because...
then we would debate which ones were important and which aren't. And maybe, why don't we try it for like 3 months and see how it works? I mean, I actually, I could change my mind later after I kind of get a handle on things. But this is a little bit too soon after just trying it for 2 weeks for me to
I'm just trying to help the employees make sure that their workday is, not overwhelmed with
Right, but-
unnecessarily needed processes.
But that's,
So-
right, that's again in your opinion, but I mean, if
Okay, we're going to move on to website proposals. Item D, everybody, we postponed from last time. We now have a third, or actually an additional from Active Network, which I believe everybody received. It was emailed out to everybody. Again, this goes back to us talking about how we're going to upgrade the email, also to address the listserv concerns we've had with its limitations. Are there any questions on the proposals, or Ms. Mesmer, did you want to say anything about these?
I think the one from Triple G Interactive is not going to give us anything more than we have right now. WordPress is essentially the same platform as Joomla that is creating the issues with capacity and everything else. So that's one that I would recommend we not spend too much time considering.
Okay.
The other two are similar in price. I think overall Civic Plus seems to be the one that's a little better designed for the government entity. They're also working, they already have an online e-pay system in place. They're working to show us how to create a form for online registration. But overall, they've now serviced about 1,100 government entities, whereas Active Network is just getting into that field. They're more probably the organization we would have put in place online registration and the rest for the community center for all recreational activities should we go to that extent. Their web content seems to be a brand new enterprise, and they don't seem quite as in-depth, don't have the capabilities that Civic Plus does on that end of the spectrum. So what we have are, there are some entities, some cities that actually do Civic Plus for the main content manager, and then they pull in Active Network for the recreation portion. That's an option. Another option would be to go ahead and do Civic Plus, see how far they can get us to the online portion right now, and if it doesn't work, then switch that portion over to Active Network before the end of the year, so we can have online registration for the pool passes for next season.
And that's been an actual goal to get that done
Yes.
sooner than later.
now how many proposals, so we received 3 proposals?
Yes.
For a website? And how did those 3 find out that this was an opportunity that we're requesting proposals? Does anybody know?
One of them was a result of sending out the listserv. A friend of his lives in the township and forwarded it to him. He works for a company that works downtown, but his main employer wasn't interested in making a proposal. So since he is a subcontracted consultant for that company, he's the one that submitted this proposal.
Which one was that?
That was Triple G Interactive.
Right.
The other, Civic Plus had talked with us at the end of last year, beginning of this year, to make a proposal, and that was probably the starting point for the entire process. Active Network gave a webinar for Mr. Quigley and Ms. Hugh and I last year. It was last year already, or toward the end of the beginning of the year.
Right.
So I contacted them when I didn't receive any other inquiries from the listserv mailing or from the website posting.
Well,
And there were no others.
Well, and you're gonna not like what I'm gonna say now, but this is one of the notices that when it came out, I don't think the way it was worded, when I first saw it, I didn't even notice it because the title was Notice for Website Services Providers, and it kind of blew right by me because I thought it was, I don't know what I thought it was, a notice for website service providers. And I would request that we send this out one more time and state the title, something like Orange Township is seeking a website service provider. Because I think that, I could be
What
wrong.
was the original?
It just says notice for website services providers. It doesn't say we're really seeking a website service providers, and this is one of the ones that I wish I'd reviewed before it went out. I think it should say something like notice request for, and Orange Township is requesting website service providers. And then in the body, that way, there's other companies in the township that do this.
You
kind
do
of work.
realize how specialized this is, though.
Yeah. It's
Did you read the Civic
Yes,
Plus?
yep.
I mean, it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Right.
And for the level that Orange Township is at, I think it could really meet our needs. This isn't something that someone who has his own small business in his basement,
Right.
I think, can do. And listserv, we're looking at mainly residents, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But unless they know somebody, they
Right.
can forward their name on.
And actually, I know several people that are on that are actually not residents. They're just on it just to keep up. Like, I'm on the Genoa Township website or server just to see what's going on over there. So I think some business owners are probably on there. I would just like to re-advertise it once more with the more, and I could be wrong, maybe we'll get no more, but
I will tell you, we need 4 to 6 months to get this thing
Right.
completed,
And we're
to
gonna
get
have
it
time.
ready to open for online registration. So the longer we wait, the less likely we will have online registration for next season.
I'm not, yeah.
that'd be
and
a
I-
2-week delay,
And I
2
really
weeks.
don't want to delay that process again. I'm sorry, Mr. Spitzergibson.
I was just going to comment on the Civic Plus and that in looking at a POS system for the front desk for zoning fees and whatnot, and delaying that in terms of looking at a web provider that could integrate that as well as dump those monies into and work with Delaware County Bank was attractive. And at the same time, instead of having all of these different methods of payment, if somebody were to walk in the front door, we could potentially have a kiosk set up there where they could input on Civic Plus e-pay system right there instead of having all these different systems. So the integration of it all with our web, their e-pay system, and their ability to dump that and still integrate with Delaware County Bank is attractive because that keeps us from having to go out there and get another depository agreement as well. So far of these three and other ideas companies have thrown at us, that seems to be, in terms from a fiscal officer standpoint, an attractive one.
But we already received 3 responses.
We did receive other inquiries, Ms. Knapp. They were not interested in doing the work for us. Benchmark Digital and a couple of the other ones who work for Fortune 1000 companies all called in response to someone else forwarding the email to them. And once I described the project more in detail, they weren't interested in working with us. So we did have other inquiries.
Do you have a list of
3
those?
proposals.
Do you have a list of those companies?
I have the emails in my
Can you
folder.
email those to me when you get a chance?
Yes.
I mean, we're talking 2 weeks of waiting. I mean, if you guys are comfortable, then go for it, but I just don't think it was, I think it could have been worded a little bit better.
I'm not sure how much,
This is such a specialized thing
it's a very
as a government
specialized thing.
thing. You actually almost need to go after those kind of companies, not wait for them to come to you.
Yeah, and I've seen hundreds of companies dealing with this type of application at conferences and various shows. This is not as pointed out, not just a website development company. It is more specialized. There's a lot more to it. And you're not going to get a lot of these smaller local being able to provide the same amount of services as Civic Plus or even Active Network.
Right, well, they don't even have to be in Orange Township. They could be in Delaware County.
I mean, I don't know how many more times we want to. This was originally sent out when? Original one?
I think in June,
June 28th.
So it's been 2 months already.
Yeah.
I don't see a need to keep moving this, kicking this down the road. I mean,
I
this is
thought
something.
you'd be really excited about this. 'Cause I know how important the website is to
Yes,
you.
it's very important, but we've already received 2 valid quotes, and I usually prefer to get a few more than that if possible, just to make sure. It's my first time considering this kind of proposal, and how do you know what you're missing out on? Unless-
Three.
Well, the third one was, she said didn't,
No, that was others, she said.
Well, no, you had project proposal, triple Gs, which we said it doesn't have all the capabilities that we're looking for.
so 2 valid
Most of them.
proposals.
For government entities, harder to come by.
And it's been 2 months and a week, or probably 9 or 10 weeks, so. I mean, the benefit is if we did get something in the next couple of weeks, it'd be very easy to compare and make a quick decision at the next meeting. It's not like we're starting from scratch and rereading everything all over again. It's not going to delay the process. It's been, what, nine weeks probably since we got these, since we sent this out. It's not going to take 9 more weeks.
One thing I will say is my experience as a project manager is that every week counts in getting something implemented. And I will caution, the more and more you delay that process, the more you're going to run into possible overages and be delaying what we're trying to accomplish by getting a more robust website, getting our listserv up to par where we wanted at, and also getting online registration, which is key for the swim season that, you know, I don't want to delay anymore.
Was this discussed at some point last year?
It was, and we did. We were very active in looking at possibilities, and what we decided to do was go ahead and test it with what we currently have set up for swim lessons only, just to see how it would work out.
Because we got too late in the season.
Right.
We didn't have
And that's what
time.
we do, that's what we need to avoid again. We don't want to get in that situation where we get too late, because there's a lot of variables of making sure that we get the database, ensure that we get everything updated. The current members that we have in there that we talked about, trying to get that master list created. So there's a lot of things that you know,
But it's been over
again,
a year since I thought it was being considered, and I thought, I don't know what 2 weeks difference is gonna make.
well, the consideration then was online registration only. This is different. We're talking about re-engineering the entire website and incorporating online registration all in one application. So this is completely different than what it was last year.
You could also book the shelter houses and stuff through this too.
Yep.
All that can go online.
We also have a media center. We have live streaming audio or video for the meetings if we need to, or one or two.
I suggested all of that back in 2009. I was told we were not allowed to do that, so.
We're not talking about 2009, we're talking about right now, trying to move forward and seeing what we can do to get this set up and moving. So
I'm saying it's already behind it.
it's not,
2 weeks in.
but
They
2 weeks
suggested
again.
that 10 years ago. I mean,
Again, my point is though, as an experienced project manager, I would say 2 weeks is a difference, because I can tell you right now, you'd be shocked when things can happen in 2 weeks.
Remember, there's 3 of us, so if you two are ready to move forward, go right ahead. I'm totally fine with that. And if you're not comfortable waiting, then I'm fine with that.
My point here is just trying to caution you, because you can delay a program, and that again, you can push it off. Something that we've been trying to do.
All right, I understand.
And all this, just to put it on the listserv again, really?
Well, there's 2 of you and 1 of me, or 3 of us.
You know what,
and 2 of us
a
and
major
1.
purchase like this, we should all be in agreement and working together on it.
Well, I've made it clear how I feel. It's up to
Well, I mean,
you
we
guys.
can delay it again. I mean, it's fine. We can go ahead and put it on the serve and wait another 2 weeks for.
That's why there's 3 of us.
And just trying to get some things done here, so.
That's fine. I mean, if you go ahead and go for it, I mean, obviously, we're all gonna have to use it, so.
I'm fine with Civic Plus. I'm fine to move forward with them. They seem very workable. It fits with the fiscal office requirements. It fits with the parks requirements. Has the capabilities for listservs. I'm pretty comfortable with it.
This is their ballgame, and this is what they do for government entities. They understand all the legal framework of it. And everything.
Do they do any work for any local companies?
So Whitehall,
Worthington, City, Grandview Heights, Marysville. I'd have to find the rest of the list.
All listed in there.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of communities around here, so there's gotta be other companies that do this. I mean, not necessarily well, but.
In fact, we tabled it last time trying to get another quote. So that was another reason why, from already 2 weeks behind from that standpoint, trying to get a third quote for comparison. So, I just don't want to sit here and keep on spinning our wheels, chasing down.
Well, what you consider spinning your wheels is what I consider doing my due diligence, so. We can have differences.
I think we've done a very good job at our due diligence. I think over the years, especially looking at different applications, we've done our due diligence. These are the ones that came forward, and this is, you know, everybody's had time to look at it, I believe.
All right, but there's only 2 valid quotes. I, again, would prefer to,
And several people, at least 3 other companies refused to give any quote for us, for our services. They absolutely did not want to get involved in this project.
why is
And
that?
I can't force that if they're the only ones that respond to any mailing that we send out, and then they refuse to get involved. That's about the end of it.
But why did they refuse to get involved?
I'm not certain. They just felt it didn't fit with their business model.
And that happens, whether it's the
They
enemy's
might
too
have not
small
been
or
capable to
just-
handle it.
Right, couldn't handle it.
Right.
And these too small, it's not worth it. It's not within their sweet spot of dealing with a company or an entity.
If we're something this big, I just think that we should have more than 2. I mean, how do you know what you're missing if you don't have it?
As I mentioned, I've seen thousands of these applications, so I'm pretty aware of what can and can't be done out there. So
Right, I respect that.
I'm fairly comfortable with that. That's been my past experience dealing with vendors, dealing with government entities, so I've seen quite a few. But if it's your feeling, are you looking for ensuring that you have full support on that? Is that what you're?
What?
I'm asking Trustee Toronto.
I
She
think-
mentioned that from the investment
It would
standpoint.
be really nice if we all agreed on this, yes.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead and put it back out on the listserv again for another 2 weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to item E.
I believe at the last meeting, we attempted to declare our 1990 E1 Hush 135-foot rear mount aerial ladder. We needed to put a resolution together for that. I believe Mr. McCarthy did that, helped us out with that, and you should have, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, should have that before you. Declaring it basically obsolete, removal from inventory of no public value, and we would like to place it on gov deals.
Great.
I don't have any questions.
So the minimum bid would be $5,000?
Yeah, this is a sort of a reverse auction, so we'll start it at $5,000. What we did was we went out and looked at fire apparatus currently on gov deals. As we were taught in our training with gov deals, we took the middle of the road. What we were seeing, we didn't go with the very high end or the very low end. We kind of looked at the middle, and we felt 5,000 was a fair starting.
Because the concern before was there was no minimum possibly, and it could go for something less than it was.
No, there'll be a reserve. The reserve will be 5,000.
Yeah,
so.
that was a concern before, right? That there wasn't a reserve, or we didn't know the value?
No, I think the concern at the last meeting was we needed an actual resolution detailing it going onto gov deals, and that just very similar to what we did with the maintenance department's red pickup truck, Clifford. So I think Mr. McCarthy, he can speak for it, but I think we modeled it after that resolution.
That's correct.
Did we have the minimum, the reserve at the last meeting? We knew it was
We did,
$5,000?
we said 3,500, but I think we've upped it a little bit to 5,000.
I thought that was like half the concern. We were just wanting to make sure that was fair.
Oh, yeah.
Did we put the tree removal on the listserv? Tree removal on the listserv, did we do that?
I don't think we did.
We might get a good quote.
Yeah, I thought I suggested that, or I might be wrong. Yeah, can we do that? Put the,
I think it's a good idea. I'm sorry, my mind got going on those trees and the
No
listserv,
problem.
and I just couldn't stop.
I'm here all night, we're good.
Beth, can you coordinate that with Nancy? And I don't know how you do
Yeah,
that.
we can put it on. I have to be honest, to beat the bids that the county got, I think is gonna be impossible. But we can, put out, they contact us, we'll put out the information of what they would provide for mobilization and tree sizes that the county has done. Mike, I would have a question as to, there's I'm sorry, we're kind of bouncing around here, but the county has bid specs and documents that go with that apply to the township. How detailed would we need to get if we put that out and don't use a company that has gone through
I
that
think one thing
process?
we're gonna have to watch is your bid threshold on maintenance.
So,
Okay, if we're gonna get anywhere near there, then we
We would
need
be
to go back and
surpassing
follow
that.
the statute.
At the current,
From the numbers
piece
you've been
right
throwing
now,
around, it
we're-
sounds like you would. So we're
we're
gonna have to
surpassing
do
the
a bid
repair and
bid.
maintenance,
Yeah,
right? And the listserv does not serve as a public, I mean, that's not,
no, but for individual tree, we're talking about one, wouldn't have any problem with that. The problem is, once you trip the bid threshold, if you haven't bid, you can hear about it from the auditor in your next biennium.
right? Since we're talking about tree service here and the full program, would that be advisable to put it on listserv, because we would be bypassing that bid process then at that point?
Well, again, if the intent is to use this for the full boat, you need to bid. Okay, splitting the bid, no, you get caught on that, you get in a lot of trouble.
Well, and we've had this conversation of.
Yes, we have.
With the definition of a project. I mean, we've looked at this to date as this project. To start dividing it, I would, at this point, would be doing so for budgetary
Well, I mean, part of
purposes.
that's gonna come down to what is the likely out-of-pocket. If it's $32,000, you've got a $50,000 bid limit.
Yeah.
Well, not for repair and maintenance. $50,000 is for new construction. I thought we talked about a 20.
You're thinking prevailing wage?
For highways. Well, I thought that there was a repair and maintenance on highways.
I'll check it. But I'm thinking it's 50, but I'll check it.
I'd like to go. And then whatever you decide, if you want to put it on, is it okay with, is there a consensus that we can put it on the listserv?
I think that's what he's gonna find out.
Right.
Oh, we can't do consensus.
I don't have any
Do
questions.
you need this read?
I think it
Yes.
does, yes.
So there are no questions, right? I move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the township has certain used property that is not needed for public use, is obsolete, or is unfit for the use for which it was acquired, which property may, per RC section 505.10, be sold by the board by internet auction. Now therefore be it resolved that the following listed property is found to be not needed for public use, is obsolete, or is unfit for the use for which it was acquired, and shall be sold by internet auction in accordance with Resolution 12-052 and the online auction memo of understanding between the Board of Township Trustees and Gov Deals Inc. with the minimum bid amount which would be considered being as indicated, $5,000. The item identification number is 1990 E1 Hush 135-foot rear mount aerial ladder, VIN number 46J DDB A84L1003286. Be it further resolved that the terms and conditions of the sale shall be as set forth in Resolution 12-052 and the online auction memo of understanding between the Board of Township Trustees and Gov Deals Inc., and that the same, together with the above information, shall be provided on the internet by Gov Deals Inc. at the time of the auction. Be it further resolved that the revenue collected from the sale of the items by internet auction shall be deposited into the general fund of the township or, upon further order of the board, transferred and appropriated to the specific fund from which the items sold derived, if ascertainable.
Second.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes. Moving on, item F, continuation of ORC 1347 discussion. This was brought up 2 meetings ago. It was tabled. It's back on the agenda because it needs to be discussed and move forward.
Just was brought to our attention by the auditor's office. It was implemented in 2010 or 11, I can't remember. I should clarify that it didn't pass and implemented that we integrate this into our employee handbook manual so that everybody's aware of their requirements in terms of personal information held by the township.
What's an example of personal information?
For example, could be anything that would otherwise need to be redacted in public records, Social Security number.
So you're talking about our personal info system, is that like their files, employee files?
In our capacity, yes.
Anything else that we have that is considered
Pass
personal
application.
info
Past
system?
applications, records kept by the fire department for EMS runs,
Okay.
those types of things. And if you read 1347.05, it goes through a litany of different requirements and parameters.
I assume you would be the person responsible for the system, or Connie, correct?
Yes, as the records custodian, yes.
And Chief, Noble, is it true that the fire department has always had those restrictions in place, but formally or informally? The access to personal information?
Yes, and as far as EMS reports go, we are covered by HIPAA. Our EMS coordinator, Mr. McKenzie, handles all of the EMS report requests, so he can make sure that the HIPAA requirements are followed. Fire reports, we work through the fiscal office. We kind of have a dash line, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Spitzer, we kind of have a dash line from your office for fire reports.
Right.
Inspector Golson, all 3 of our inspectors actually will, if there's a fire report request, they will print that report and send it to the insurance company or to the requesting party, and then we let Mr. Spitzer know. Otherwise, the requests generally come to us, so we just go ahead and handle that since we have the reports on site.
All right, but you can't handle a lot of personal information, or you could in your reports.
EMS-wise, absolutely.
Right.
Mhm, yeah. And so that's why the HIPAA requirements are in place, but we still have to follow what Ohio Revised Code says, what the fiscal office says, because technically they are the handler of all of the public reports.
And the personnel files are kept in
Personnel files
one place.
are kept, personnel files for fire department employees only are kept at the fire department except for health, medical.
Yeah.
Those are kept at the
Which have to
fiscal
be kept
office.
separate.
But we also have a dash line between the fiscal office and ours in regards to the personnel files.
Yeah.
Patty handles those.
And no one's allowed to look at those unless within...
Chief Stewart, myself, and Patty can look at them. The individual can look at his or her own personnel file. They do that in presence of either Chief Stewart, myself,
Right.
or Patty. They can't take anything out of their personnel file.
So you've done a good job, I think, even without this policy, of keeping a lot of personal information private.
We have, but
Even
again, I go
before
back to, we will follow the Ohio
Oh, yeah.
Revised Code as specified, so.
And I think, if you read the statute, the township has reasonably addressed every issue here. The auditor just wanted to satisfy the statute as a whole, and that we adopt it as a township. But I think in looking at fire department policies and employee handbook and those things, that most, if not all of this is covered. For example, disciplinary measures to be applied to an employee who initiates or otherwise contributes to releasing any of that information. And I think Ms. Messmer, in discussion with the fire department, and what was the manual that you referred to?
in rubber, you
Yeah.
had.
Yes, and
Yeah,
SOBs.
they run a
And-
tight ship.
And if there is ever a request for one of our employees' personnel file, that information will be pulled, sent to the fiscal office for his copying and redaction.
Okay, right.
We just maintain them.
Yeah,
at our
right, I know.
facility.
I was just noting that you do a good job already of doing this. And when I first learned of that system, I was very impressed what a tight ship that you're in.
And as pointed out, a lot of these things were already somewhere throughout the personal handbook, which, as the auditor just wanted something more focused.
Yeah, because the auditor said it did
So-
not meet all the requirements that we should have in place, so I'm glad to see this in place.
In one place.
One place, so it wasn't, so there was one place, okay. Well, I don't, I'm fine with this, from this, you need a resolution,
There is a resolution,
let's see,
that was at a prior meeting yet.
I heard this, thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion for adoption of the following resolution. Be resolved that the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio approves and adopts operational rules governing personal information systems to govern and regulate the use of Orange Township personal information system. The version of the operational rules governing personal information system adopted is as presented to the board, and bearing is for the version identifier 072812.
Second.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Randall?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Security system that we talked about last meeting in regards to adding additional card swipes to it. There was a request to go out for bid for replacement. Ms. Hugh hasn't had time to go out and get that done because it's been very busy the last 2 weeks. But it also has been some discussion about, do we really want to go out and replace the entire system for something that already works and spend more money on something like that?
And I have spoken with Electricom and told them that I would be contacting them to get a full quote for the entire system. And I've also had a phone call from someone who heard that we were looking and asked them to send me some information. So we have done some information, but when we went for the listserv, there was some question on moving forward.
My concern is that when you're talking about replacing the entire system, I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here. And, you know, as I mentioned before in a previous meeting, you know, I think the security here is pretty adequate. We haven't had any issues from a standpoint of, so all we're doing here is looking at replacing key entry to this card swipe.
Right, that way we can see who goes into what office and when, exactly, which I support that, and I think, I don't know what the harm would be in putting it on the listserv and getting quotes. I mean, you don't know how expensive it's gonna be until you get some quotes back. And I don't mind waiting, I know you're really busy with other things, I mean, it's not an emergency. If this year needs some extra time,
I'm
look
also,
into it,
I guess the other question too, though, is that, I mean, we don't have a system that's failing right now.
in your opinion.
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
It's broken, it's absolutely broken. We don't know who goes into what office when.
That's
We
the reason
don't
why
know
we're
who-
adding card swipes to those offices.
That's right, exactly, but it doesn't hurt to
We didn't-
consider replacing the entire system.
It's $7,000 to add card swipes.
That's why I'm, yeah.
That was for one
If we wanted to,
company,
that's what
though.
the
$7,800.
$7,800.
I mean, right now, we don't know necessarily who has a key to what office, who's coming and going, other than the front, the main entry. And it would be useful to get,
And it tells
Card
you who's
swipes.
coming in.
yeah,
Who's
and
leaving.
it doesn't say whose offices they want into, does it?
I can see you want to say something.
I may be speaking out of turn, but I can speak from our security system with the fire department that's over at Station 361. We're not having any issues with it. It works fine. If at all possible, I would prefer to keep our system in place and intact. I'm concerned that if we go in and start replacing that system, that it is a cost that we have not budgeted for, appropriated for,
Is your
number one.
system, is
It's
it,
great monitoring fees, too.
It's wonderful monitoring fees. We have no issue with that. It is all simplex Grinnell equipment. Now granted, if we had an issue with that, we would go out and look to see comparable prices to replace. But if our system can integrate with what is being proposed here, I think we would much rather go that route and integrate the two instead of going through and replacing everything at our station at this time.
Well, the method of entry to the fire station is key card swipe.
Correct.
Are there any key card swipe features on the inside of the building?
Yes, there are.
Are there?
We have one room that is key card swiped, and that is the EMS storage room, because we keep narcotics, and we have to keep those narcotics behind two locks. The first lock is the key card access, and then the next lock is a key lock. And the in-charge medic is the only one with that key to the narc storage.
Are those the only key card swipe just to get in?
Internal to the building, yes. All others are doors leading in. We have, and let me clarify that, external entry from external into the building are 3, and then we have 3 internal from the bay into the station areas. So if I count correctly, that's 6. And then we have 1 internal into the EMS storage room.
And do you have a list of who has keys to
Sure
different
do.
rooms?
We have
at
that
your-
list. That list is kept on the computer system, and we can access it at any time to see who has made entry, what time, and all of that. And again, Patty, our administrative assistant, handles the assigning of key cards and working with the staff over here to get that.
But for, as far as the metal keys, the actual keys?
Keys to locks?
Yeah, you keep a list of who has those? What
Yes.
offices?
We know, yes, they are assigned, and we know who has those. That's kept also.
And when
with
they
Patty.
turn them back in, you
That is
make a note
correct.
of
We
that?
collect them, and we collect the key card access.
That procedure is not being followed here at all. There's no list of who has keys to what, other than the card swipe system.
Actually, there is. Mr. Ray knows everyone that he's passed a key out to.
He knows who they are, but is there a piece of paper
He
that
can
you
provide
sign
a,
up?
we can provide a written
I
list.
asked for that a couple months ago. I was
You
told there's no
know,
list.
recently, in the last couple of years, office keys have been changed.
Right.
Those keys have been provided to the trustees, so that's been an update. So it hasn't been 10 years where keys have been floating around.
There's no record when the change is made. There's no record. And when someone's given a key or a key's given back, there's no written record, no
Mr.
master.
Mr.
I
Ray
don't want to
has
get down,
it.
I don't want to get down this whole direction about keys and
So
stuff.
my
We're
whole point
talking
is that
about-
I would like to have, it's important to me to be able to have swipe access if it's affordable. And I don't see what the harm is of putting this on the listserv.
What we're saying right now is add swipe access to the township offices right now for a fee of less than $8,000. Instead of going out and replacing the entire system throughout the entire township.
Right, but this system is, I thought, kind of old, and my point was sometimes, I got a security system at my house, and it was really old, but by the time I decided to not renew and go with a different company, because they came in and the technology was new and it's cheaper, and they put a whole new system in for cheaper than the original system, and it was like 4 times as good, because this system has been here since 2001, 2000, parts of it.
And it's been doing its job from what we've been told, especially in the firehouse.
installed when the building was built in 2004, 2003, 4.
And it's essentially doing its job. It's giving access
Yeah,
to its access.
we've had no issue. If there's been minor mechanics, we've had it taken care of, but
Just change it back.
if we've had any issues, it's not been in the last couple of years that I recall.
And to your point, you know, we're looking at the possibility of adding to your budget, which I really don't want to look at right now, of adding anything else to your expenses.
Well, if it adds a lot, then we just don't go for it. I don't see what the harm is in looking into it.
I wouldn't want to add anything to their expenses right now, to be honest with you. So I don't even want to look at the possibility of replacing their system because of that.
And I think we'd be looking at, right now, we focus on keeping people out, the public out from locked areas, the community room, the pool area when it's closed, Township Hall in general, and the fire station. I think we're shifting to a monitoring system with what's being requested as to who internally moves within, that hasn't been a requirement in the past, hasn't been a necessary need that's been identified until recently.
Well, due to recent incidents, I would prefer that, but there's another thing, is sometimes a company can come in and use existing equipment. Like on my system at home, there was a motion detector and they didn't have to replace it, they just integrated it into the new system. And I know this is a much bigger deal.
Oh, yeah, home
doesn't hurt
security
to look
systems are a lot
into.
different than from a
Right, I'm
commercial
aware of
raise,
that.
so there's gonna be different systems running
Right.
those.
I'm just giving you an
With
example.
Simplex Grinnell, the issue with that system is proprietary. But a lot of the pieces don't work with anything else because they're specifically proprietary. They're designed to do that. And they're not supposed to be used with other pieces.
But I thought at the last meeting that we agreed we were gonna look into this more, and then there was a
Well,
discussion.
it became a time issue, and I'll be honest with you, I don't want to put any more strain on the fire department for their budget. We have a simple solution here to take care of the local offices here for less than $8,000, add card swipes. We have a system that's in place that works. So I don't, I'm trying to say, why are we going out and asking for replacing an entire system that we all know will cost more than $8,000? And probably, I don't know if he's giving you any type of thoughts on that or not, just in round numbers, or if you had any conversations with that or not.
Yeah, and the process, I think, is probably twofold, because I do think that we might be close to the bid threshold. And so the initial contact would be just to get some preliminary information from them, no actual proposals, but for them to give some estimates and just provide some information. And if we see that we're approaching that bid threshold, then we need to pull back, write a scope, put it out for advertising, advertise it, and then do the full bid
Yeah,
scope.
or just go with $8,000, but I don't feel comfortable making that choice for $8,000 when I don't know what else is out there. And that, I thought the last meeting we had a consensus that we were gonna move forward and look into this, because you're the one that brought it up as being an item that you're interested in again. I thought we discussed getting some quotes.
Well, I brought it up because it was mentioned that this was a request to have done. As I said at that meeting, I said, we've never had an instance or an issue with the key access or anything else, but we're doing this because a question came up, which I have no problem with doing it. But again, I want to be careful, because no matter whatever you do, outside this, you're going to put a cost onto the fire department.
My question is, why is this an issue now? For 4.5 years, there's never, ever been an issue of keys. There's never been an issue of questionable entries. There's never been any issue whatsoever.
There was one issue recently of questionable entries, and
So is that why you want to spend $8,000 just to redeem that?
Prevent that from happening again. There's no going back, but it's sure not
I'm
gonna
not willing
happen
to use the
again.
residents' tax
Not
dollars
gonna
just to
happen
make you
again.
feel better.
It's not gonna make me feel better, it's gonna prevent it in the future. What on earth did I say? How did I say it would make me feel better? How will that go back?
That's
and
why
change
you're
the
doing
past?
it, is because of that
It won't make me
situation.
feel better, it will protect the security of the offices and make sure that everyone's accountable and there's no accusations made for something that we'll be able to have accountability for that. So I actually brought it up on June 4th. The board said they didn't wish to discuss it, and then Mr. Quigley brought it back up, I believe, at the last meeting. It's surprising to me. There must be a reason that he did it, and I don't understand what his reason was when he said he wasn't interested earlier. You both said you weren't.
It was brought up, we discussed it.
And you
I
said-
went ahead and said, well, just go out and find a quote. I mean, why not? I mean, like I said, I've stated both times, I'm happy with what we have now. I don't have to go out and do this. I went out and had them do this because you brought it up. I was doing it as a courtesy to you to go come back and say, fine, this is a quote for this. But what I'm concerned about is that we're going to continue this on, and we're going to end up with a large switchover system that is unnecessary. And again, putting burden on the budget for the fire department and other areas, when to meet the need of what was in question is right in front of us right now for less than $8,000. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
I did this, I asked Ms. Hugh to go out and get a quote for that just because it was a question, and I did that as a courtesy to you.
But what you didn't ask, I thought we all agreed at the last meeting 2 weeks ago that that's what she was going to do.
But my concern now is that we're getting into a point where, with discussions, that we're going to end up putting other departments
Right.
on
But
burden for
we had
something
the
that doesn't need
same-
to be done.
Right, but we had the same discussion at the last meeting, and then we agreed we were going to put it on the listserv, and then today an email went out from Nancy saying, I'm going to put this on the listserv, and then trustee Toronto said she didn't want to do it, and that's why we're back here. She doesn't want to put it on the listserv, or whatever.
Because again, the question is why do we need to go out and revamp an entire system that's working And when we're always, right now, all we're trying to do is address an area.
We had this discussion at the last meeting. If you change your mind and you.
I have, I mean, I did
that.
some research between now and then. I talked to the chiefs, asked them if they had any issues, what their monitoring cost was. I talked to Ms. Mesmer, have we had any break-in issues, any problems with people coming in, using keys that weren't authorized? Nothing, there hasn't been any issues,
There's
so.
been one issue.
So
There has been one
the
issue.
philosophy is if it isn't broke, then you don't fix
I
it.
think it's broken. We don't know who's going into our office when necessarily, and I would like to know,
Well, we do know when people access the building, so if they're
Right.
accessing after hours, we know exactly
but
what's
we
coming
don't know
through.
which office that they are accessing.
What we do is we know what keys go to what doors, so.
Doesn't mean, just because you have a key, doesn't mean you're gonna go in all the doors. When you come swipe in, that doesn't mean I take my keys and go in everybody's office.
But
If you change your mind since the last time, then, I mean, that's up to you guys. You can go ahead, but I still would like, we're gonna put it on the list, so it couldn't hurt to try, and that's, you guys go ahead and do what you're doing. I'm done discussing it, really.
Well, you'd have to have agreement to put on the listserv, correct? I don't.
Right, which we had last time, but you are able to change your mind if you want,
Correct. And I did change my mind.
obviously.
If we're gonna use that money, I'd rather get another deputy patrolling Orange
But we
Township.
don't know how much it's gonna cost. We could get a better system for possibly a nominal increase, but we don't know what we're considering. I don't feel comfortable unless I can look at all the options. Right now, options are missing from my vantage point.
So if only 2 proposals come back, will there then be a request to resubmit it to the listserv?
No, not as long as the listserv was worded correctly.
I'm completely comfortable with the current system, not that I have to say, but all I'm speaking from experience that there's never been an issue and for Dick Ray, it's just never been an issue.
what are your thoughts?
It serves its purpose. We haven't had any issues.
Do you want to move forward with upgrading the offices?
No.
No? No?
I don't know what the process is, if you have to have consensus or what.
Well, there's 3 questions here, basically. Right, there's, are we interested in sending out, first of all, are we interested in spending the $8,000 upgrading key cards? Are we interested in doing nothing? Are we interested in advertising on the listserv that we would like a quote for the entire new system?
I guess the 4th question would be, who are we monitoring? I mean, the public doesn't come in here after hours.
Joel, we've already discussed that. We've discussed that.
Are we
There's no need
spending
to discuss it.
$8,000 to monitor ourselves? I mean, there's just never been an issue.
There has been an issue, and you're aware of that, so it's up to you two. Go ahead.
Well, I'm personally not in favor of trying to add any more burden on other departments for this. So even if it came back for, $20,000 in place at all, it still costs that I don't think is needed across the other departments.
Even though we don't know what the cost would be at this point.
It's irrelevant. You're asking to go ahead and ask a department to spend money on something that's not broken.
At the minimum, it's gonna be $8,000.
Right, well, you were saying you would go for the $8,000. You were
I never
suggesting,
said that.
I didn't say that.
What?
Mr. Quigley, you were saying.
Yeah, but that's not coming
8,000
out. But that 8,000 is not coming out of the fire department's budget. And I'm not. The fire department doesn't need to take on any additional expenses from this right now for
Right.
something that's not broken.
But you were saying, we had 3 different opinions. I would like to put on the listserv and consider both. You would like to keep it status quo, and then you were considering upgrading it.
I would, no, wait a minute. I never considered upgrading it. I was
The
always against.
$8,000, you were
No,
against
no, that's
8,000?
adding, not upgrading.
Sorry,
Adding to the additional services.
Adding it, well, I
I've never been in
considered
favor of
upgrading.
upgrading to an entirely new system.
Well,
because-
upgrading to me meant it could include adding new
replacing.
key cards, right. But you are in the favor of adding key
No,
card system.
as I stated early on, I think what we currently have suffice. I'd be willing to go ahead and look at adding additional key cards, but I'm fine with currently what we have, and I've said that both meetings.
Right, then it's a moot point. So we have a consensus to do nothing, to keep the status quo.
Again, as trustee Toronto pointed out there, I'd rather spend the money on something that goes to the township.
Right, but you're the one that added it to the agenda last
I
time.
put it on there, again, I did it as a courtesy to you because you brought it up. I went out and had the quotes given,
Right.
and, you know, but I will not take it to the step of going ahead and putting burden on other departments and trying to replace the
It was
system.
decided on June 4th that the board wished to do nothing, so you're the one that added it on 2 weeks ago, so.
Ms. Knapp, I'm sorry for trying to do something that you brought up. I
brought it up,
apologize for
but-
trying to follow through. You know what,
It was a
I
dead
don't know
issue.
how to make you happy, I really don't.
All right, it's a dead issue.
Let's go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and move on to economic development. Adding additional, we've only had one applicant to the Economic Development Advisory Board. He did show up to the last meeting. He's still very interested, and everybody has seen the resume, so I would like to go ahead and move forward and
And that was put on the list, sir, wasn't it?
officially bring him in, yes.
Was it? Yep, and there's only one applicant, so that's fine.
Any questions?
Nope.
And in fact, actually, that went on the listserv, and the reason why we got this, because it was a recommendation from current OT advisory board members, so we didn't get any responses from the listserv, did we?
No, none whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. I can move for the adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved that Mr. Sean M. Carroll is hereby appointed to the Orange Township Economic Development Advisory Board, OTEDAB, to serve in a vacant position formerly held by Mr. Harold Babson. Be it further resolved that Mr. Carroll shall serve in the position for the balance of its term, which will expire on December 31st, 2012, and until successors is appointed and qualified.
Second.
Is that Ms. Knapp or Ms. Tarantino?
Knapp's fine.
Thank you. Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Ms. Tarantino?
Yes.
We have a extensive list of obsolete items. That's Mr. McCarthy's going to read off, because I'm not going to. Okay, as described below. Any questions?
Yeah, I need to go. I need to take a pause. I want to take a 5-minute break.
Jeez,
I was gonna
it's
go.
not that long.
2-minute break. I was going to go while you were reading this list. It was real slow.
I could just say it as worded below. Can I say that? And she can just copy it over. Oh my gosh. 2-minute recess. Yeah, I just did. Turn regular session. So we have a list of obsolete items. I'd like to make a motion to designate the following township property as obsolete, no longer fit for public purpose, and of no value. The township therefore may discard, salvage, or donate such property or equipment to applicable subdivisions. Specifically, the items are the following: 1 HP LaserJet print cartridge, Q2613X, 1 HP LaserJet 1300 printer, CNDJ C8860, 1 Dell backup Powervault 110T, STU 62001LW, serial number HR01H1M, 1 Dell computer stand, CNOU C795-42940-5B I02UP, 1 Gateway keyboard, PN 7044260, RT3602 V5JTWA, serial number 205-32973, 1 HP Office Jet 5610, all-in-one scan copy fax, CN 58BCF285, 1 Avocent SwitchView 2-port 5201-194-005, 1 pair of gateway speakers, PN 7004408, Edison 2.0, serial number 36030200810, 1 Hong Kong power supply, number D12-18950, 1 gateway DVD-ROM compact disc, PN 5500774, SR8583B, serial number 912, 1 PJ A90382, 1 APC surge protector, BE35011, serial number AB02371449, 1 JASC aftershock photo software 06AFS US, 1 Microsoft Windows 98 WO5056333231, 1 Microsoft Office 2000 Professional, product key PMBHD 32KM4 QBT7G, TV7D4, CY8Y3 CD set X05 7614, 76214, 1 Microsoft Office 2000 Professional, product key K2RFV9 R37G6 TCB-TD, 9WYQM XR F6G CD set X849261. 1 one Microsoft Discovery, Microsoft Office 2000 Premium and Professional Manual, X03-80039, 12 miscellaneous cables and connectors, one microphone, one HP keyboard, PN 434820002DOM, KB0316, one Kensington attachable copy holder, one 3Com Office Connect Internet Firewall 25, serial number LN7B40544272, one Linksys 5-port network hub, NH1005 version 2.0, serial number R8740H110512, one DVD switching adapter, DSA 9W09, serial number R071017012574, one Dynex 4-port 10-base T Ethernet hub, DX EHB4, serial number 062833011372, one Linksys Easterfast 10103 port print server 901264006332, one Seagate Ultra US20 SCSI drive ST373307LW, serial number 3839ATAL, one HP mouse FB7330AN3BJ5VGQ, one Nikon MH61 lithium ion battery charger, one ESRI Archive 3.1797601113046, one Microsoft Office XP Professional version 2002 product key, KFMBW RPJGD PD872QT GK3 WWQ62 key, VSet X08011519, one contact Intel Pentium 4, serial number V243KN9ZD331, one Gateway Intel Premium 4E serial number 00329220017, one Gateway Intel Pentium 4E serial number 00325411148, one barcode scanner PS700E.
Second.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Fiscal Office report, post-conference audit discussion. Fiscal Office?
Mr. Chairman, I am requesting, or recommending rather, that we have the State Auditor's Office provide a post-audit conference for the purposes of explaining the audit. I've been through 4 audits and I've never seen anything like the current one in terms of false accusations and the amount of questions that were fired at the auditor's office. And I think it would be advantageous to the board, Ms. Mesmer included, and Mr. McCarthy, in this, I should note, confidential post-audit conference that has to be an executive session between the hours of 8 and 4 and today in my conversation on Thursday.
On Thursday, so you need some dates from us. So I guess first off, we're looking for consensus to give you approval to do that.
What would this be? Would it be an executive session to discuss what?
It's a confidential conference with the auditors who perform the audit on the township to explain just the processes and procedures in place and all of the tests that they ran on the township books and other policies and procedures that we have. For example, the recommendation for Higher Rise Code 1347.05, those types of explanations.
But doesn't the auditor already review those things with each trustee or give them a preliminary report?
No, in fact, again, due to the, I guess the amount of questions they've gotten and interruptions and the accusations that have been thrown around and conspiracy theories that in years past, through 4 audits, I've always received the audit first, and then I distribute that to the board and any other person that wants it, and it's posted online. But this year, because of those accusations, conspiracy theories, it's going to be forwarded to the board and the fiscal office.
I believe the auditor's office told me it's the normal practice that the actual draft or the preliminary report always comes to the trustees and the fiscal officer. That's what she told me.
You had a lot of conversations with them.
For our
so I'm
contract.
sure.
No, I had 2.
Well, what I can recall is the last one, that it did come to you and was forwarded to us. So that was a procedure then, so unless they changed the procedure.
Conversation today, it was, I had inquired, why is it different this year that it's going to be distributed as a whole, rather for me to just review and then distribute. And she had indicated, because of all the questions and the accusations and conspiracy conspiracy theories that she would feel more comfortable sending it to the board and the fiscal office.
Maybe that was already determined when Ms. Knapp spoke to them, that that's what they were going to do.
Or I just asked when we were going to, she asked about the procedure, and she said it was going to go to all of us, but I don't know why we need to waste our time with having that conference. It could be compiled in a memo, or it's going to be, whatever the audit is, we're all going to see the preliminary report. If we have questions, we
I would
can ask.
actually like to listen to what was found and ask questions if needed, so I'm pretty interested in having.
I think what would be beneficial is, as I tried to explain since 2009, appropriations and cash on hand are different. They'll explain the budget process so that...
Yeah, this will be my first audit, and I think that's a great idea. I'd like to sit down and...
Wait, the auditors will be in executive session?
And it's confidential. We don't explain that anything discussed in that meeting cannot be discussed outside that meeting.
And under what category of executive session would that be?
Mr. McCarthy.
I'll have that for you.
So can there be recordings? Can people record things?
Absolutely not. She was,
Well, I would hope that nobody would be doing an executive session.
Yeah.
she was adamant about the fact that there will be no recordings, no
No
taking
notes,
notes.
no minutes. But you have to have a reason for going into executive session.
Well, this is not new to townships, in fact.
No, they've done it before.
Then what? What's not new?
Executive session.
Every audit is provided, every township government entity, city, state, every department that's audited is provided an opportunity for a post-audit conference in private. And every single time that's been offered to the board here, and it's offered to every board in every government subdivision.
We've never done it before. I don't know why we need to do it now. If it's not broke, why?
We've never had, she is correct, in my time here, we've never had a post-audit conference. It's been offered to the board, but because of the experience and history that previous boards have had with Mr. Egan, longtime trustee, having been through several audits, Mr. Cassidy felt from the report that he understood everything.
I think didn't we have a post-audit discussion though on that, or no?
Well, but all those things that are discussed aren't going to be coming on the audit, and anything that was discussed, it's not going to be on the audit, and it's not been discussed with anybody but the person discussing with the auditor, so it'd be a waste to even bring any accusations out in public unless you like, bring accusations out to other people unless you'd like to share those, unless they were a problem.
What are you talking about?
Well, you're saying there's accusations and things like that, if they were found to be
For
false.
example, you told the auditor's office that I stole $800,000 from the township.
Never, no,
She will
that's not
explain
correct.
to you that through the budget process,
Right.
that was an appropriation,
Mhm.
inadvertent, but had nothing to do with cash on hand.
Right, well, it won't even be in the audit, so why is anything like that even being discussed if,
Because I think it's important for you to hear the budget process.
well, I'm not
I think in
interested.
general, I think it'd be good for everybody to sit down and, as Mr. Toronto said, maybe, for her first audit from
I mean, this audit went from
No,
$4,000 to $9,000 because of the length of the minutes, because of a reconciliation issue.
Oh,
So,
I'd like to see all those reasons put in writing by the auditor.
so I think we get our money's worth and hear the explanation.
So it needs to be during the day, you're saying preferably a Thursday?
Special meeting and then
Special
executive
meeting.
session.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I'm sure if each of the trustees went back and looked at the calendar and came up with a Thursday, a couple Thursdays coming up, maybe shoot it to you and then you could formulate the best Thursday.
Sure, they asked for a few dates,
Okay. Times.
hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
She had
Maybe the
to
next-
wrap it up.
But when is that coming out? When is the preliminary audit report coming out?
The board should receive it this week. They had to redraft a couple items and they're going to be distributing that this week.
And where will it be distributed at? In the boxes or mail
They
or?
will be sent to you in attachment on an email.
Okay. This week, you said?
Joe, if I remember right, I think you've got about 5 days to protest anything that's in there.
Right.
Yeah, so it needs to be a very, if for any reason.
And that 5 days will toll once the official draft is sent out as an attachment to all of us. And I did address a couple issues today that were taken on.
But we don't necessarily need to have a meeting prior to that, but if there's any issue that trustee sees or they can bring it to your attention, maybe then we have possible action. But for this post-audit conference, if each of the trustees can, in the next couple of
You know,
Thursdays.
I would request, and I think rightfully so, that if there are any issues or questions about it, that we work together to ask the auditor, not to have these side conversations where it's convoluting the process.
We're all allowed to ask, as trustees, we're allowed to ask questions that we deem necessary. That's our right as trustees, and we will continue to do it.
You're exactly right. I'm asking to be involved in the process.
Right.
Jeez. It's difficult.
So we'll go ahead and each of the trustees can do that. We set up a special meeting then, maybe in the next couple of Thursdays. Move from there.
Preferably in the morning.
Okay. Anything else from fiscal office?
Just that, and I will be distributing a copy of the certificate of estimated resources. We received that back, so.
Okay, great.
Receiving a copy of that for budget purposes. However, yours says 0 for next year. So.
I'm fully aware. Okay. Thank you. The final item is the approval of minutes for the August 20th regular meeting and August 27th special meeting. Starting off with the August 20th regular meeting, are there any changes? Trustee Toronto?
No.
Trustee Knapp?
No.
Are there any changes to the special trustee meeting August 27th? Trustee Toronto?
No.
Trustee Knapp? Bring a motion to approve the August 20th, 2012 minutes as presented.
I'm sorry, which minutes were those?
August 20th, 2012.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Ms. Nash?
No.
Make a motion to approve the August 27th, 2012 minutes as presented.
Second?
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Ms. Nash?
No.
No other business, this meeting is adjourned.